In the last video, we finished creating the object and a constructor, although we didn't implement any validation yet. In this video, we're going to create a new method that extracts the coordinate arrays that we created before through a method. This should be a much shorter video. Let's start adding it. As usual, the first thing that we do is we create the method in our stubs file. The method that we're going to add is called getCoordinates. And it's going to return an array. I will now run make install, and make test. Again, we're getting an error because the symbol that we've just defined in our stub file hasn't been created in our C file. So let me add that. This is a new Zend method, but it's with the same class name. The name of the function is getCoordinates. This method doesn't accept any arguments, and you can tell PHP parameter parsing algorithm to check for that with a specific macro, which is called Zend parse parameters none. We want to return the same coordinate pair that has been stored in a constructor. This is a Z file, so we'll have to return a Z file as well. We'll use the return Z file macro. This accepts quite a few arguments, so I'm going to do that over multiple lines. The first argument to return Z file is the Z file itself. In a constructor, we use Zend update property to update a property. To read a property, there's another macro called Zend read property. The first few arguments to it are the same as for updating it. First, we get the class entry, the object, the name of the property, and the length of the property name. But we're not storing anything here, so we don't have to specify that. Instead, it accepts two extra arguments. They're false and null. The first one, false, stands for silent. Sometimes you don't want PHP to show you errors or warnings when you're reading a property, in which case you can set silent to true. We want to use the standard behavior, so we'll leave that to false. The last argument, which we define as null, can be used to also store the result of Zend read property in. We don't need to do that, and to be honest, I've never seen a need for this, so we'll just specify null. Return Z file itself also requires a few more arguments. The first of these two is whether return Z file needs to copy the Z file itself. We want to do that, because without it, the return Z file and the Z file that is stored as properties are the same variable, which means it also would change the points array that is stored in the object itself. We don't want that, so we'll make sure to copy it. The last argument specifies whether the property that we've read needs to be destructed. That means that it would reset the points array in our object back to an empty property. We also don't want to do that, so we specify false for this behavior. This should now be the full implementation of getCoordinates. Let's now compile this, run make test, and run our script from the previous video. Make test works fine. That is mostly because we haven't created any tests for this, of course, yet, which is going to be our next step. If we run the var dump from our previous video, it also still works. We get no error here. But instead of the var dump, we're going to do it for just the result of our method, which we call on our object. And then indeed we get the same array out than we put in. To test the behavior of a constructor and getCoordinates, we're going to create some test files, of course. Let's first start with a constructor. I like naming my test files with the full class names and methods involved. As before, the test file starts with --test, then the description, for which I'll just use test for line string constructor. And then we can specify our file. We're going to create a very simple line string class with just 2 coordinate pairs, similar to what we've done on the command line. A line string is an array of coordinate pairs. Our first coordinate pair and our second one. When we var dump this, we should get a useful output. Also a reminder to always close PHP files and test files. I'm not going to create the expectation yet, we'll do that after we have run the tests once. Because testing for the constructor and the getCoordinates method are so similar, I'm just going to do that right away after modifying this file and saving it as a new one. Now let's run make tests. Of course our tests fail because we haven't added the expectations yet. To see what the actual output was, PHP's test frameworks generates a file of the same name with a different extension called .out. So we open it up. We can copy and paste this, but only do that if you know for sure that the output is actually correct. It is sometimes possible that objects' number are different. The number here after the pound sign, 1, is basically the first object of the type GeoJSON line string. Because these can change, I prefer using a wildcard here. Because this is a number, we can specify %d. This is also the reason why I use expect f here and not just expect. We'll save the file and go to the next one. And also see what the expected output here was. I did something wrong here. I didn't call the function, but I tried using the method name as a property. That's wrong, so let's try this again. I'll update the test file, run make tests, and then see what happens. You can now first see that our constructor test succeeded, so that's good news. So now we'll just have to update this last one. Again, we open the out file to see what the expected output should be. And as you can see here, this is our actual just array. Because there is no object ID in here, we don't actually have to specify the f in expect f, so I will remove that. Now we're going to make test again. And all our 4 tests now succeed. With this, I'll call an end to this video. In the next one, we're going to implement the validation to make sure that the data we're passing to the constructor is actually a valid geospatial GeoJSON line string. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh yeah, you can also subscribe if you want to be notified of the next video. Thank you, and goodbye.